Be Frankie.
Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out, we're stuck in the Matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out, we're stuck in the Matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out, we're stuck in the Matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out, we're stuck in the Matrix.
Yo, what's good? It's your boy B-Dell. If you're new to this channel, hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. Now, this video is basically the precursor to a channel message that was facilitated by Rod Hayes, where he included me in the video as he was talking about the restoration of the matriarch and the fall of patriarchy. Now, one thing you got to understand about a fraudulent system of patriarchy is that it's basically reached the apex of a seculum of a cycle by way of a fourth turning, meaning that the Great Reset season happens during the time of tribulation season. Tribulation season is the segue to election season. So this is why they got to keep you stuck in an artificial time analysis mechanism, meaning that you're stuck in a time loop of the vetted simulation of reality because there's no evolution for the third dimension. So this is why they got to propagate the degradation of crimes against the indigenous people when you're talking about Sonya Massey, but we finna get into that as we get through the whole presentation, right? So get those notes out, ladies and gentlemen, because we finna dissect everything from the socio-political aspect of civics. We finna break it down civically, indigenously. Everything is gonna make a lot more sense, you know, for those who are basically stuck and confused about what's going on the planet. Now, recently, there was a soothsayer. She was talking about the decline of humanity during the time of 2025. Because whatever the deep state shadow government, the plutocracy, the oligarchs, the white hats, whatever they got to do it during the time of election season as we segue into the year of 2025, right? Because the year of 2025, you also have Rahu in Pisces. Rahu is going to be in Pisces all the way up into the spring of 2025, right? Which is not a coincidence. So that's where you're going to have a form of high spiritual consciousness on the planet. So a lot of things is going to be unveiling themselves during the time of this process, right? So now, one thing you got to understand about the propagation of patriarchy, well, the propagation of matriarchy masquerading as patriarchy. So like I said, you cannot get a matriarch out of a demo system that is basically the foundation of democracy. You cannot get a matriarchal order in a patriarchal system that's based on a de facto corporation, which is based on a demonstrative government. A demonstrative government means that it's operate in a place of far because it's a corporation. When you go to Uniform Commercial Code, Title 18, Section 3002, they tell you that the United States is a corporation. It's a corporation because it's built on fraud. Anything that's built on fraud has many different aspects, right? So this is where you get into the inception point of the demo system of democracy that was facilitated by the Secret Treaty of Verona that was basically created under a diplomatic code in the year of 1822, right? So this is basically the beginning points of the democratic system and patriarchy that basically subjugated the matriarchal order that was created by the indigenous people of the geographical landmass of America, right? Because the secret treaty of Verona is connected to the European Pentarchy, right? The European Pentarchy, it also works in conjunction with the political and the ecclesiastical prominence of maritime law. Maritime law is water law. Water law meaning that it's connected to you, connecting you to a form of a corporation that is facilitated by the dark priesthood of the Vatican Church in the Roman Empire, right? So this is where you get into the Jesuit oath, right? Screenshot this publication. The Jesuit oath works in conjunction with the bloody oath of secrecy. The bloody oath of secrecy is the secrecy to basically extract the energy, extract the birthright, extract everything that was created by the indigenous people by way of the secret treaty of Verona, to where you turn the demo system, where you turn a matriarch into a demo system that is controlled by patriarchy. Because one thing you got to understand about patriarchy is basically the foundational blueprint of a corporation. A corporation is ran by corporate internal codes. Corporate internal codes happens by way of commercial law. Commercial law works in conjunction with ecclesiastical law, which is connected to maritime law. Everything is operating from a place of fraud. So that's why, like I said, the bloody oath of secrecy works in conjunction with the Jesuit oath. The Jesuit oath was being facilitated by the Pentarchy European status of the secret treaty of Verona under a diplomatic code in 1822. So this is the beginning points of the 1724 Black Christian codes, right? Because when you go to the G3526 Strong Concordance, the word Christian translates to the word black. The word black takes you out of your sovereign capacity. So in order to get reparations, in order to get restitution within the infrastructure of fraud, you got to conform to these misnomer appellation titles, right? These misnomer titles connect you right back to the 14th Amendment. Like I said, it's a fraudulent system because it was never ratified, right? So the 1724 Black Christian codes is where the police get their policies from, right? So this is why you don't get justice within the unjust system. This is why, like, police officers, they can do what they do when you're talking about Sonya Massey and things of that nature, right? Because you don't have no type of political allegiance. When you don't have political allegiance, you don't have the supreme birthright of a nationality, because nationality comes from the word nativity. Nativity means birthright. Your birthright connects your etheric cord to the planet. So this is why you have the Code of New York of Louisiana, which is basically the inception point of the 1724 Black Christian codes, which is also known as the slave codes by the policy enforcers, where they basically become the slave catchers. Because the inception of the police force, we all know that they were basically slave catchers, right? When you do the knowledge and you do the history. So the 1724 Black Christian codes, when you read the Christian codes, it tells you Code 1, owners of enslaved persons had to baptize enslaved persons in the Christian faith. That's why I said, you go to the G3526 Strong Concordance, the word Christian translates to the word black. When you call yourself black, it connects you to the civil mortuus principles in the Black's Law Dictionary, right? Meaning that you're civilly dead in the eyes of law, meaning that you're basically non-descendable in a demonstrative government, because you're under a misnomer title, because you're under the jurisdiction under the Act of Parliament, right? You're under the jurisdiction of a demo system. You're under the jurisdiction of the secret treaty of Verona. You're under the jurisdiction of democracy, right? Which takes you out of your sovereign capacity, right? So you also have 2 code. The owners of the enslaved persons had to give them Sundays off for worship, meaning that you're basically forced into the Christian code. You were forced into monotheistic belief systems and religious systems. We didn't deal with religion. Everybody knows that. Everybody has been Everybody who's been doing the edification on this information knows that we was not Christians back during the inception of the first sun cycle, right? Then you got the 3 code. Owners of enslaved persons were not allowed to separate families. 4 code. Enslaved persons were not allowed to marry a white person, right? Negative code from French. A child born to slave parents becomes a slave in turn. 2 code. Slaves had to be branded. 3 code. They must not carry any weapons except hunting purposes with the permission of their master. 4 code. Slaves belonging to different masters must not congregate at any time under any circumstances. Definitions of the black codes. The black codes are a set of American laws passed by the states or at a local level, which were intended to limit the fundamental rights and the civil rights of so-called black people. Originally, the Constitution of the United States validated slavery, right? So this is why I understand why people are so they like to propagate the ideology of voting, because it tells you right here the Constitution of the United States validated slavery, right? Because you don't know who you are. So this is why the Democrats, they propagate civil rights, because civil rights ties you right back to the system under the jurisdiction of patriarchy, under a demo system. Because when you propagate the Declaration of Human Rights, it ties you right back into the Indigenous People Act. We finna get into that later. Now, once you understand that paradigm of civics, this is why things like this about Sonya Massey, this is why when you got police officers, they can basically unalive indigenous people, because we don't have no type of pedigree on the planet. We don't have no type of Appalachian title that connects us right back to the land to where we're able to reap the benefits of autonomy and political sovereignty within the infrastructure of the geographical landmass of America. So rest in peace to Sonya Massey. And you know what I'm saying? It's unfortunate that things like this has to happen, but it's all part of their system. It's all a part of their system, because I showed you this in the 13 Crystal Skulls video, the video that they took down, and I was telling you about the satanic ritual agenda, as they're basically talking about sacrifice, women's sacrifice during the time of July 1st all the way to July 31st, right? And now we're in August, right? All that stuff with Sonya Massey and those 700 women coming up missing and they was being trafficked, all that happened during the time of July. So it's not a coincidence that this satanic ritual agenda, this calendar, basically lines up with everything that's going on, because they do these rituals because it's connected to the bloody oath of secrecy, as I was telling you. That is the bloody oath. The bloody oath of secrecy is basically to extract the energy, extract the life force, extract the culture, extract your birthright from the indigenous people by killing us all, right? And they can only do that if you're operating under a misnomer title, because you don't have no type of political allegiance within your own land, right? So this is why a cop can come and kill a African American or a black person, but they cannot kill a people who was operating under a form of matriarch, when you have, because that system in itself is being facilitated under a republic, and a republic is for the people, right? So this is why you got to understand the semantics that's being played by the socio-political aspect of civics within the infrastructure of westernized government. When you see the United States of America, of denotes ownership of a people who don't know who they are, because they don't have no type of political sovereignty within their own land, because they're calling themselves Black or African American, which was created by the slaveholders. When you see the United States for America, for is for the republic, for the people under a matriarch, right? That is basically the diametrical difference between the United States of America and the United States for America. Because for America is for the people, and it's for the indigenous people who belong to this landmass, right? So this is why they can do stuff like that. These are all blood rituals under the bloody oath of secrecy, right? So, like I said, this is why a DJ, he is accused of trafficking nearly 700 black girls, right? Not a coincidence. During the time of July, during the satanic ritual agenda. So all this stuff, when you're talking about the ecclesiastical law, the bloody oath of secrecy, and the secret treaty of Verona under the Act of Parliament, all this stuff works in conjunction with the Draconian Constitution, which is the Draco's Code that operates under the rule of law under the Athenian democracy. The Athenian democracy is an oral code to basically introduce concepts of an intentional, unintentional homicide to the indigenous people. So that's why the great majority of the laws within the infrastructure of westernized government is all the foundational blueprint of draconian law, right? So although the full draconian constitution no longer exists, it basically does exist, but it's under the Jesuit order, right? It's under the Jesuit order. So you have severe punishment. It said the draconian and the laws were said to be written in blood instead of ink, right? As you see my cursor here at the bottom right here. Draconian constitution and the laws were said to be written in blood instead of ink. Why is that? Ties you right back to the bloody oath of secrecy, right? Because it all works in tandem with the Jesuit oath. We all know who the Jesuits is. The Jesuits are also known as the Khazars or the Ukrainian mafia. The Khazar, when you break down the etymology of the word Khazar, it means wanderer, right? Meaning that they're basically nomads because they don't have no homeland. They don't have a homeland because they're taking the homeland of the people that they don't know who they are. So this is why they create this demonstrative government to take you out of your sovereign capacity. This is why you got to be Christians, right? This is why you got to conform to the monotheistic religion. This is how they put you under ecclesiastical law to take you out of your birthright, right? Because when you understand the whole dynamics of the system, civics and spirituality and metaphysics play a huge part on what's taking place right now on the planet, right? So you cannot negate the, the edification of civics when you're talking about Sonya Massey and things of that nature, because it all works in conjunction. Everything is connected. So the Draconian Constitution. So this is where you get into the fact that, like I said, the Draconian Constitution was written in blood, which is connected to a form of a harsh punishment against the indigenous people. So it's not a coincidence that what happened with Sonya Massey was a blood ritual under the bloody oath of secrecy that is propagated by the Jesuits, right? Draco's Code. Now, this is where we get into the draconian aspect of it. When you talk, like Rod Hayes said in the video, I'm going to play the video after I tell you about this publication. I demonstrated this publication many times. Now, Rod Hayes, he was talking about how they have unleashed an amalgamation of Manchurian candidates who are basically under MK Ultra. Now, when you look at this thing from a grand scheme, in order to do that, you gotta be under a hypnosis state under a form of animal magnetism, right? Meaning that they have to subjugate your cerebral spinal system because it's connected to your energetic morphic field, and your morphic field is connected to your nervous system. So when your nervous system is at a low vibrational state, this is where these Dracos can take upon the vessel of a Manchurian candidate and carry out a certain agenda that is being propagated by the plutocracy who controls government, right? So these body snatchers, these entities that you cannot see, that don't take corporeal form, they're a body snatching Manchurian candidates to carry out a certain agenda under draconian law, under the draconian constitution that was written in blood because it's under the bloody oath of secrecy, right? Now, I'm gonna play this video by Rod Hayes. Play this video by Rod. Dang, I forgot to send the videos to me. Bear with me for a second. As I get this video together. Yeah, I forgot the, Bluetooth them to me and airdrop them, but they're coming. So everything that's taking place right now is not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence, right? So while these videos is uploading, this is where I can get into when you understand the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it connects you back to the Indigenous People Act, right? So, in order to be an indigenous person, you cannot propagate the false misnomer title of African American or Black or any other misnomer title that puts you under their jurisdiction. So, when you're indigenous to the land, you're recognized by the United Nations under international treaties, conventions, and etc. The United Nations Declaration of Indigenous People, adopted in 2007, established universal framework of minimum standards for the survival, dignity, and well-being of indigenous people, and elaborates on existing human rights standards, fundamental freedoms as they apply to the specific situation of indigenous people. Because, like I said, if we had a sovereignty, if we had, if we was operating in our political allegiance, you wouldn't have things like Sonya Massey and Sandra Bland and things of that nature. Stuff like this wouldn't happen because we're connected to the land. We know who we are. And I got many different publications that represents everything that I'm basically saying within this video, right? And I'm going to play that video after the video with Rod Hayes. I'm going to pull up the publications that basically gives you undeniable truth about who we are as a people according to their political infrastructure that tells you in their documents, right? So we finna get this video is uploading. They're getting airdropped. And there's a book that I need to get. I'm gonna get it later once we get through the presentation. There's a book that I need to show you guys. It's called The Lost Continent of Mu, the Land of Mu. All right. So now we got the videos coming up. Like I said, this video is basically the precursor to a channel message by Rod Hayes because it's not a coincidence that when I put out that 13 Crystal Skulls video, I put out that video the same day that they showed the body cam of Sonya Massey being unalived by the police officer, right? It's not a coincidence. I was talking about, I've already had this ideology about the 13 Crystal Skulls because the 13 is a matriarchal number. So there's a reason why they took that video down. Everybody knows that, I'm very I use I don't use a lot of vulgarity. I operate from a place of verbosity when I break down my videos intuitively to give you the true edification that you need. My videos are very educational. I don't come on here slandering people. There's a reason why they took that down because the 13 crystal skulls was basically the symbology of the restoration of the matriarch as you go all the way back into the inception point from the Olmecs, the Aztecs, and the Incas and the Native American tribes that connects you right back to the land, right? As they giving you a false matriarchy through patriarchy with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, right? All this stuff works in conjunction. I'm gonna play this video because, like I said, this video is the precursor to the Honorable Rod Hayes.
This so let me give you a little background as the people start coming in. Y'all share the video. I've been getting spirit knocks from Sonya Massey. I've been ignoring them because I know they use these events to corral us in to this political theater. Can't call it nothing less than theater, right? And so today I get up, I'm checking my messages, and somebody sent me a video Miss Dean on a walk with the ancestors. And she's channeling this lady, Sonya Massey, and she not really understanding what the code she giving her. She not um, she dropping the code. She not translating. So, a couple of things that I need is the dates, the number, and the names. This any when you know the meaning of the name, the significance of the numerical value of the date, the day of the week, and then you also know numerology. They tell us 13 is a bad luck number. It's not bad luck for the earthborn.
Like I said, all this stuff that's working right now, like I said, it's a channel message. Even my video was a channel message. There's a reason why I put out that video, the 13 Crystal Skulls, right? All this stuff happening right now on the planet is not a coincidence. Rod Hayes lives all the way, I think he lives in Detroit. You know, I talked to him on the phone a few times, but, you know, about a year or two ago or whatever. But it's one of those things where, you know, I've never met this man and we're getting the same codes, basically. We're getting the same channeling types of message. So there's something going on in the ethers right now, right? It's something highly spiritual that's going on in the ethers. And the consciousness of the planet is starting to wake up by way of the 13, the matriarch, the restoration of it.
It's bad luck for the ones who don't belong. So to undermine the divine feminine, to undermine the restoration of the matriarchy, they do blood rituals on days and dates that have a numerical value of 13 in order to tear somebody down that's rising to prominence. And it's the same as a sleight of hand trick where they slightly distract you over here, but they're doing a trick here. It's the same thing, right? Um, so she rattled off some names. She rattled off, one of the names was Sandra Bland. Sandra is also pronounced Sandra. Sonya is short for Sandra. Sonya is tied to Sony, which is another rendition of Sophie. When we're talking divine wisdom of the feminine. So when you're looking at these events, the short story of the Sandra Massey is the Gerald Massey wrote Destruction of Black Civilization. I don't know if they related or not, because I'm not going to investigate to find out. So if you investigate to find out, it's gonna appear what you're looking for. But I'm not digging because I see the cover story, which is the part of the story you first. You're supposed to always see the cover story before the backstory comes to the forefront. The cover story is that the lady was being stalked by a prowler and called the police, and then when the police got there, they shot her in the face because she had boiling hot water. So she said the blood of Jesus, and he shot her. If you go back down my page, Instagram or Facebook, the story, you're going to find that we are already told everybody that there was Manchurian candidates unleashed in Illinois. A Manchurian candidate is derived from a program of the government called MK Ultra. Manchurian candidates have been being used. Zimmerman was a Manchurian candidate. The guy Chauvin in the George Floyd case was a Manchurian candidate. When they send them at certain people, they give them what's called a activation code under hypnosis. In the case of Bobby Kennedy Sr., Sirhan was a Manchurian candidate. In the case of John Lennon, the guy who shot him was a Manchurian candidate. In the case of Ronald Wilson Reagan, the guy that shot him was a Manchurian candidate, illegitimate son of George Herbert Walker Bush. That's why he looked exactly like Jeb. All this is already information I put out years ago. Now, these Manchurian candidates is sent at specific people, and they don't know until they activate it what they supposed to be there for. They don't know why am I here? Like they confused. Why am I here? What am I doing at this location? What most of us don't know, it was the police had been staking out this lady house. It was the police prowling in her yard. It was the police looking in her windows. And then when she tried to complain of it, they told her that she was mentally unstable and she needed to go to a psych ward, which is apparently what they saying, that before she made the call, she left the psych ward. Now remember, a lot of our elders and a lot of our people is saturated with the Christian doctrine. And in the crisis, a lot of our people was told to plead the blood of Jesus.
That's what I tell you. See, everything's on point with the message. It goes all the way back to the 1724 Black Christian Codes. You pull it up. Shout out to Rod Hayes, man. It tells you right here. Owners, slave code 2, owners enslaved persons had to give them Sundays off for worship. You was forced into Christianity. The word G3526 Strong Concordance, the word Christian translates to the word black. Black, you have no political allegiance. You have no sovereign capacity. So this is why cops, they can catch you and unalive you because you don't have a nationality. This is why stuff like this keeps happening to us. We're going to keep going in this loop over and over because the matriarch is here. But you know what I'm saying? You got to claim the land. You can't claim the land when they trying to give you reparations, because reparations in itself is a form of technology and semantics under a political authority to where they put you under the jurisdiction under the act of parliament. Because when you sign over your signature for the reparations, it connects you right back to the fraudulent system, right? This is what's going on. They have to destabilize the rise of the matriarch.
Wrong answer. Flat out wrong answer. Because they got you believing Jesus is other than who Jesus was, then they telling you how to trap yourself. So if you pay attention, you can see him activate with the code. They didn't care, they didn't care about the water. She had put the water down already. If you go back and watch the clip, she put the water on the counter and she turned around and she looked at the police. Whatever she saw, she said, "The blood of Jesus," and all hell broke loose. One day y'all gonna wake up to the games that these people playing with us. I don't know when it's gonna be. I don't know what's gonna be y'all final straw It snap you out of this hypnotic slumber we under. That is critical for analysis. And all of these election time acts of violence against us is to confuse us to the climate of the political arena that's really a stage show. While they in the front ground running a stage show, the most of us that see what's going on staying out the way because we don't agree with it. But some of us are full-fledged participants in the events. So the code, remember, she was popped in the eye. It's critical to know which eye it was. I think it was the eye of Horus or the right eye, which is really the eye of Osiris, and the left eye is the eye of Horus, because the right eye was given to Sekhmet to wage war against the patriarchs by Ra. But the right eye, the left eye, was given to the son, Heru, by the mother Isis to see through the deceptions and to restore the matriarchy at the right time. So he activates on the blood of Jesus his Manchurian candidate programming. It's so obvious to me, but it's not obvious to most people. So I try not to say that because I get annoyed when people on the other side act like I'm the only person that can read code. If, for instance, let's say if I tell B Dale, hey B Dale, go back over the election time shootings over the last since 2012. Look at the numerology, look at the name definitions, and tell me what you see. He gonna be so freaking detailed in what he come up with that it would almost be unbelievable if he didn't have the verifiable evidence laying in front of him that he looking at. You got other people that's not sign readers. They job on Earth is to translate a science.
So, with that being said, that now we get into that. Now, this is going to lead up to what I was talking about as far as connecting right back to the land, to where things like this don't happen again, right? With Sonya Massey. Because these are blood rituals that's propagated under the Draconian Constitution that's connected to the bloody oath of secrecy that is facilitated by the Jesuit order. So, as I was telling you before, the Declaration of Human Rights puts you in alignment to the Indigenous People Act that is basically connected to the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People. You're recognized by the said so-called government. So now this is where we get into the publication. This publication was very hard to find. It's redacted off the internet. But when you get into this court document, the Clinton Lamont Montgomery versus the state of Indiana, the United States hears of Henry Turner, case 32, United States Appellate Court in 1850 was an appeal to earlier case won by the hearers of Henry Tunica called the hearers of Turner Tunica versus the United States case 191 in 1848. In other words, on June 6, 1848, a Supreme Court decision read by Theo McCaleb, judge, declared that the United States does not own the land of the ancient mound builders of North America, much more than 1 million square miles of land. The Mers, the indigenous Mers, not blackamoors, are the title holders of the land. And the title holders are the Els, Bays, Days, and Alis, translated as the five civilized so-called Indian tribes, which is the Choctaw, Wichita, Cherokee, Choctaw, Creek, Seminole. When you break down the etymology, it means fugitive slave, and the Massey, right? So this goes into the fact that the geographical landmass of America belongs to you, but they giving you people like us through the demo system of democracy. They want to propagate reparations to you, right? They don't want to get you the land back because, like I said, when you get reparations, it's connecting you right back to a form of fraud to where you got to sign over your nature and put you under their jurisdiction again. It's a form of political semantics and tricknology. Don't fall for the tricks, right? Because we all know that the inception of all indigenous civilizations were all matriarchal. We didn't deal with no patriarch, right? Patriarchy, as I was telling you before in the beginning of the video, was facilitated by the secret treaty of Verona that works in tandem with the bloody oath of secrecy under the Draconian Constitution, right? That is based on ecclesiastical prominence under maritime law. So now, this is where you get into the more of the court documents, where it tells you right here that whereas the titles of nobility, namely El Bey Day Ali, is recognized by international law because nationality basically gives you political allegiance, and the nationality is the supreme political authority that eradicates the jurisdiction of a de facto corporation, a fraudulent system, right? Because the demonstrative government operates in tandem with the Vienna Convention and the laws of treaty, and it also works in conjunction with the Civil Rights Acts of 1964, right? And it tells you right here in 1978, the Supreme Court of the United States held all remnants of the Choctaw Nation and entitled All Rights Federally Recognized Nation. You're not recognized as a so-called black person. This is why stuff like Sonya Massey, the police officers, they can do what they do because you don't have no type of recognition in within the infrastructure of government, right? So this is a whole court document, right? The purpose of the United Nations is to maintain the international peace and security of the indigenous people, right? So it's not a coincidence that when you understand who you are on a genealogical level, when you understand who you are on an indigenous level, you won't give a damn about no reparations. Because like I said, reparation is going to connect you right back to the 14th Amendment, which is a fraudulent contract. It's going to put you under the jurisdiction, under the act of parliament, because you got to sign over your nature to get the reparations. You got to conform to being a black person. You got to conform to African American. You got to conform to misnomer titles that connects you right back to the fraudulent system to where you don't get the land back. I showed you right here that the land, verbatim, it says the United States does not own the land of the ancient mound builders of North America, much more than 1,000,000 square miles of land. It belongs to the MERS. This is why you got to get this book right here called The Lost Continent of Mu, because the word Mu is a nomenclature symbology title that means mother unity under a matriarchal order, the restoration of the matriarch, just like me and Rod Hayes is talking about, right? Don't you see how spirituality and historical context and civics works in tandem? It's crazy. Because like I said, reparations puts you under the act of parliament. It puts you under the act of parliament because just like when you had the Indian Removal Act, this is how we reap the benefits of the wealth that we basically deserve, because the Indian Removal Act was basically the foundational blueprint of how Black Wall Street was basically created, right? Now, before we get too far into the video presentation, I want to show you this video here. Because I was telling you before, we were talking about the ancient mound builders for 1,000,000 square miles. Who built those mounds? We did. So this video is going to be showing you the ancient Maya connection to St. Louis, Missouri. Who's in St. Louis, Missouri? The great majority of people in St. Louis, Missouri, in that geographical area, especially East St. Louis, is where you got, so-called blacks at, right? Not a coincidence, because those pyramid structures and those mounds in St. Louis, in that geographical area, has a positive electrical frequency that connects you right back to the land that works in conjunction with the Big Dipper star constellation. I told you about the 7 cities that basically in alignment with the Big Dipper star constellation, right? The Moena star constellation, where you see the word Moena translates to the word mer or more, right? Your etheric core belongs to the planet.
Mounds were destroyed. The Great Mound was completely gone by 1869, and only one of the 27 survived until the present day. There was no law against anyone with a shovel digging up these mounds to look for souvenirs, and that's exactly what happened. While what was done here was an offense to the dead, and certainly a loss to science, what was found here was very curious. There were items made of seashells from the Gulf of Mexico, 751 miles away, and earrings made of copper that looked like long-nosed gods. These resembled statues and art from ancient Central and South America. At other sites across America, amateur archaeologists and trained scientists found that these ancient cultures were, in fact, very skilled in working with copper. Much like the Mayans, Aztecs, and Inca.
Nestled in Boone County, Iowa, lies a historical gem that's more than just a mound of earth. The Boone Mound was an archaeological wonder that intrigued all historians that knew of its existence. Though not towering in height, standing at just 24 feet 6 inches, its significance is monumental. Its location, a mere 500 feet from the Des Moines River, suggests it might have held ceremonial or strategic importance for ancient inhabitants, but it's the 1,500 yards of earth beneath and the intricate stone patterns that truly captivate scholars. Historian T. Van Heining noted its unparalleled remains in 1908. The skulls found here, with signs of cranial deformation, hint at cultural practices that align with the ancient Middle Eastern culture. The mound's stone layout, spanning half a mile, bears an uncanny resemblance to ancient city of Tel En Nasper, most likely the biblical town of Mitzpah. This suggests shared knowledge of architecture between these distant civilizations. Its discovery was so pivotal that Chicago's Field Museum wanted to preserve it and move it to Jackson Park. But challenges arose, with the powers that be, and wanted the mound's mysteries to remain buried with it, and so the Boone Mound was leveled and made for cultivation. The only memories of it are in rare books from the early 1900s, and newspaper clippings that speak of it, and a small plot claim in the archives of the Library of Congress. Join the North American Earthworks Society, and unearth Americans' hidden heritage, dive into history, ask questions, and uncover the past. Like and follow for more archaeological adventures.
They would do research, they would dig down 1 foot, and they might find something.
Now, when you read at the bottom, right here, it says the mounds were built by the indigenous Ouachita people and called the ancient ones and the mound builders and the Ouachita original indigenous people, rightful owners of the land of America. As I showed you in the court document, right? You can't make this up, man. You cannot make this up. It's time to wake up. It's time to wake up. It's time to stop asking for reparations. Why would people who are mentally and spiritually broken need reparations? Because the money in itself is not, you ain't gonna do nothing but destroy yourself with the money. I showed you right here. The mound builders. We are the mound builders. The word Ouachita, that's where you get the word Washington from, right? The original mound builders, when you look at that court document. So why even, bother with reparations? You know what I'm saying? Because the money is not backed by a natural resource, right? Because everything within the infrastructure of westernized economics, you know, is based on a form of a uniform security code, like uniform security. It's I forgot what it's called. It has QSIP numbers on it. Everything that has a promissory note, everything that where you sign over your nature has a promissory note, and it has trade derivatives on Wall Street. So it has QSIP numbers on your birth certificate, marriage certificate, and things of that nature. Everything is operating from a place of fraud for the extraction of money, which is the precursor to capitalism, classism, and racism. And the QSIP number on the back of all these things that's being traded on Wall Street is the Community Uniform Security Identification Procedure. So you don't need no money. You don't need the reparations. You need to ask for the land. People so, everybody just so cared about, worried about getting that bag, and they negate, what I'm saying, the whole blueprint, and they negate, what I'm saying, the whole aspect of everything that, in order to reap the benefits of everything that belongs to you, just like we had in Black Wall Street, it happened by way of the Indian Removal Act. Get the land back, then you build, then you get your autonomous infrastructure. You can't build on top of a system that they built that basically subjugates you. That's like multiplying any number by zero. There's no evolution in that. Their whole paradigm is based on the three-dimensional frequency that is a vetted simulation of reality. And that reality is starting to crumble because it's a false reality of patriarchy. Patriarchy is a form of fraud. The fraud, you cannot take that to the fifth dimension because there's no evolution for the third dimension, like I told you. Once you understand that whole infrastructure from a metaphysical standpoint, you will know that this fraudulent system has an expiration date, right? It goes all the way back into the precessional circle of the equinox, as I was telling you, that this whole system of patriarchy was facilitated by the Draconian star constellation, which is why we under the Draconian constitution that works in tandem with the bloody oath of secrecy, right? Now, when you shift, you go into the star Polaris, the Polaris star constellation that emits a certain frequency to the planet that basically eradicates the illusion of patriarchy, right? Because patriarchy was under the process of the age of Pisces, Taurus, and Aries. Now we shift into the age of Aquarius, right? That works in conjunction with the star Polaris. That is the true spiritual sun that is basically revealing the illusions and the semantics and the tricknology of patriarchy under a demo system. I'm going to go back playing this video, by the way.
So humans approximately 5,000 years old. Further down, 6,000 years old. So you have evidence of a legacy of continuous occupation.
A commonly known place right here in Baton Rouge.
Notice that you see the word mer instead of blackamoor. I'm going to show you the diametrical difference between the two because the indigenous mers were connected to the land of Mu, right? The land of Mu is Mother Unity. Mother Unity connects you back to the land of Mother Nature under a matriarch and a republic. So the blackamoors, they came over here with the Spanish conquistadors, the conquistadors, or the blackamoors. They're basically one and the same if you understand the historical context behind it. When you look at it from a historical context, standpoint, it was blackamoors that came over here, which is why when you look at the thumbnail of the video that I'm presenting you guys, it's showing you the indigenous mer and the blackamoor. The blackamoor took the indigenous mer out of their land, and then they taught the European the edification on how to subjugate the indigenous people.
Indian Mounds on LSU campus is actually a Washita site that predates Poverty Point.
We know that history has taught us in Western culture that Indians were a group of hunter-gatherers who supposedly came across the Bering States about 12,000 years ago and inhabited North America. And I'm here today to tell you that the mounds are not the product of an Indian culture. They're the product of the indigenous people, the original mound building, pyramid building, woolly head, black people. Here today at LSU would explore some of the common history and mythology about the origin of the original civilizations in North America. Here the sign reads, hunter-gatherers built these two mounds 5,000 years ago. It goes on to read, they are older than the great Egyptian pyramids and predate Poverty Point, long believed to have been the oldest earthen mounds in North America. So here we have evidence once again of slight contradiction, but it's good because it says they are pyramids and predate the Egyptian pyramids in Egypt.
The indigenous Washita people are direct descendants of the Olmecs, but some people say that the Olmecs were African.
Now, this goes all the way in conjunction with Dr. York's publication called Set the Record Straight. In my opinion, I think this is the book that basically got him put in prison because it's showing you everything that I'm basically telling you. Set the record straight. It goes in. Well, when you look at the publication in itself, it tells you about the inception point of where the Olmecs came from, and they actually came from West Africa during the time of Pangaea, right before you had the continental drift that happened. They basically came from West Africa and they set up shop here in America because when you understand the historical geographical areas of Pangaea, it was called North and South Exum, which is also known as Morocco or Al-Maghrib al-Aqsa. So it talks about the Olmec history, talks about, the indigenous Mers. It goes into the time, talking about Atlantis in the land of Mu. So you got to get this publication right here by Dr. York, Free Master Teacher. Right? And shout out to Noble Jew Ali. We give peace and honors to that brother there because he did his edification and he did what he can with the Moorish Science Temple as he's propagating, the knowledge and the ideologies of the fact that we were basically connected to the 5 civilized tribes. So one thing you got to understand about the whole infrastructure of the Roman ordinances, right? The church and the state is not separate because, as I was telling you before, it's under ecclesiastical law. So ecclesiastical law is a canon law. Canon law is a corporate internal code under commercial law that connects you to maritime law, water law that was facilitated by the Blackamoors, which is how they took you out of your sovereign capacity in the first place, right? So the Roman ordinances is based on social mind control and engineering, tithing, which is taxes. When you go to church, you got to pay taxes. Mass Inquisition, Black codes, the 1724 Black Christian codes. And then you got the forced servitude and subjugation under a caste system. The church uses ordinances and canon laws to rule the oppressed Mers, and the states use a de facto ordinances and canon laws to rob the ruled oppressed Moors labeled as Black, Negro, Puerto Rican, and other misnomer appellation titles. There's no separation between the church and the state. They're basically working in conjunction, right? So that's why if you don't understand civics, you don't understand ecclesiastical law that is being propagated by monotheistic religious system that is being controlled by the dark priesthood of the Vatican Church, right? So as I was saying before, don't get the reparations. It puts you under the Act of Parliament, right? So it connects you right back into a monarchy system of the white hat family under the ones who work in tandem with the York and the Scottish Rite, who control those factions or whatever that controls the religions. It puts you under their jurisdiction, right? So in order to reap the benefits of the land, you got to know what's going on. Like I said, get this publication right here, The Lost Continent of Mu, right? These are the original names of America, Exum, right? Which means mixing, hence why America is considered a so-called melting pot. And then you got Mu, just like the book. Mu is a nomenclature title for Mother Unity. Then you got Morocco or Maghrib al-Aqsa, which means extreme west, or Al-Morocco, North and South Africa, which is why I told you that the Olmecs during the time of Pangaea, they traveled from West Africa and they set up shop because it was considered North and South Exum, right? America is a prefix for Exum, and the suffix of Africa, America. In America, Al Morocco, America, Al Moroccan. Al Moroccan equals Moorish American. Moors are descendants of Moroccans and born in America, Al Moroccans. Right? So this shows you a timeline because the Olmecs are the ones who get edification to the Mayans, the Aztecs, the Incans, the Toltecs on how to build step pyramids. Because that's when you get into the fact that that is the precursor to the indigenous people building mounds. Mounds and step pyramids predate slope pyramids over in Egypt. Facts. So you have more pyramids in North America than all of Egypt combined. Not a coincidence. This land right here is yours. Don't conform to Black and African American just because you want reparations. Just because Kamala's telling you, oh, I'll get the reparations. Just because Meg Thee Stallion telling you to do all this stuff. That doesn't mean that you have to follow suit because you're being facilitated by external validation. You're being facilitated by external forces that takes you out of your sovereign capacity. Because this whole system is built on the form of technology. When you go to Corinthians 4:4, it tells you that Satan is the God of this world, right? And Satan is basically controlling the demo system of democracy under draconian law. See how all this stuff works in conjunction? In 1621, the word Indian was substituted for Moorish, right? Another publication, Negroes as Original Indians, Proof of the Jesuit Letter. You can't, it's so much receipts, bro. Then you got Indians were also called Negroes. Most people don't realize that before the transatlantic slave trade, that races did not exist, at least not in the way that we think about races today. Up until the 17th century, terminologies that were used to describe people of non-racial origin because one's appearance as means of identification and specification was more significant that of racial ideology. Anyone with dark complexion, regardless of their country of origin, was called Negro, along with the misnomer Indian. Negro was also used to define the indigenous people. It tells you right here, all the Seminole chiefs were Negroes. When you break down the etymology of the word Seminole, it means fugitive slave. There is no such thing as a Black Seminole. It's an oxymoron. Majority of the Seminole Indians were always Aboriginal, misnomered as Black people who descended from the Muskogee Creeks. From the very beginning, they are Seminoles by itself. History was rewritten by the colonizers and conquerors, who was also known as the Spanish conquistadors, who was also known as the Blackamoor. And that Blackamoor, I'm going to show you, is what you're looking at right here, right? When you look at when you look at this illustration, you have the indigenous Mers on the left side, then you got Blackamoors, conquistadors, who taught the European how to usurp the indigenous people out of their land with religion, with patriarchy, under the demo system, right? Because like I said, the first Canaanites were actually Black. That's why Yaqub, he said, I will create a people that will rule over you for 6,000 years, right? So it's not a coincidence that when you look at stuff like this, you got this guy who's 116 years old. He has an instrument, a windpipe instrument that basically derived from the ancestors of Mayan civilizations, right? They holding the same thing that he's holding up. And that's clearly a so-called Black man, right? So it's not a coincidence that they took this video down. You know, I don't do any type of slandering. My videos are very educational, you know? So that's why everything, now I'm going to go and get into this video here, and then we finna close it out here in a second.
Stick to the traditions, but they also incorporate other things into their regalia. The Indians who remained hid, or they lied about their race, if they could pass for Caucasian or if they could pass for Black. They took on another ethnic identity. But when they did that, they lost their culture. They had to hide and pretend. So now, today, people get really upset and say, well, you're not really Indian. Well, yes, they are. They had to lie about who they were. They lost, for lack of a better word, their public identity.
You know, that's straight out the horse's mouth. A lot of people don't want to come to terms with that fact because they don't want to give you the land back, right? They don't want to come to terms with it. Everybody is so stuck on this whole ideology that we Black people and we gotta vote for Kamala because she Black. Like I said, man, this is all a form of semantics, right? This is all a form of semantics. So it's not a coincidence that they took this video down, because the 13 crystal skulls was basically the symbology of the fact that it's the restoration of the matriarch, right? So regardless of what happens, one thing you gotta understand is that Donald Trump, he still has qualified immunity, right? So that means that he basically controls the military. When he basically controls the military, that means that he signed the declaration of the Emergency Act that gave full validity to FEMA. So in my opinion, what can possibly happen is that we can possibly not have an election to where FEMA is going to be activated. When FEMA is activated, that's when you have I forgot what you call it, martial law, where the military takes over, and whoever controls the military is technically still the president. Because as I was telling you before, you cannot have a democracy during a sun cycle. We basically in the Aquarian age, right? You cannot have democracy in a sun cycle. A sun cycle only works in tandem with a matriarch, and the matriarch is for the people. So the democratic demo system, the draconian constitution, all that is basically eradicated, right? Which is why Joe Biden is not really Joe Biden. So whatever they're going to do, they got to do it before the year 2025. So it's not a coincidence that, you know, Costco is selling emergency food supply buckets, right? You know, Ready Wise 150 serving emergency food bucket. Not a coincidence. So what is going to happen? What is going to be taking place to where they have to implement these types of ideologies? So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, now this video, like I said, was to give you the edification of the channel message that was facilitated by Rod Hayes. And this video was basically the precursor to it. And it's also basically the continuation of the 13 Crystal Skull video that I put out. And it was basically giving the edification about the rise of the matriarchy by way of the 13 Crystal Skulls. Because the 13 Crystal Skulls is basically operating from a place of doctrine of signatures that's basically telling you about the restoration of the matriarch by way of the consciousness on the planet starting to speed up. So when you understand the five platonic solids, you know that the dodecahedron is basically the epitome of ether. So ether in itself is basically eradicating the patriarchal metaphysical standpoint of the hexahedron firmament over planet Earth. So these energies that's coming in is, you know, it's basically activating the 13 crystal skulls, is activating the matriarch. These new energies that's coming to the planet. That's basically eradicating the illusion. Because we all know that we live in a holographic simulation, right? We live in a pixelated simulation because a Planck is the smallest unit in the universe, which gives off a form of a pixel. So this is why you're getting so much interface transitions within the simulation, right? So many glitches. So all this stuff, the house of cards that was built within the infrastructure of patriarchy and democracy, it has to fall because you live in a fictitious system, right? So the matriarch is operating under the sun cycle. The sun cycle has the ability to eradicate this whole existence. It has the ability to eradicate the better simulation of reality, right? To where things go back into its original balance. That's what the shift is all about. The shift is really giving the matriarch back their land. That's what it's all about, right? Because I was telling you before, the facilitation of the demo system was operated and engineered by the secret treaty of Verona that basically gave birth to the 1724 Black Christian Codes and the Draconian Constitution and the bloody oath of secrecy that is being controlled by the Jesuits under the Jesuit order. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, get this video out there. You know what I'm saying? They like to subjugate, these types of videos that basically breaks down everything from a civical standpoint, because civics, historical context, theology, metaphysics, they all works in conjunction. If you don't understand one, you don't understand the other, right? So this is why, like I said, it's important to understand who you are spiritually, genetically, and historically, right? I showed you the 1848 Supreme Court decision on June 6th. It tells you that the original mound builders of the geographical landmass of America belongs to the indigenous Mers that was connected to the land of Mu, which was connected to Atlantis, right? Mu, nomenclature title, means mother unity, right? So get this video out there, share this video 4 or 5 times on many different platforms, because like I said, the rise of the matriarch is based on the fact that you have to know who you are. They're going to hit you with many different forms of semantics and technology to connect you right back to their system, because their system is falling. This is why they got to get the Meg Thee Stallions. They got to get your favorite rapper and your favorite Black celebrity to pull you right back into the demo system of democracy that was facilitated by the secret treaty of Verona. Democracy is why things like Sonya, Massey, and George Floyd and stuff like that. This is why stuff like that can happen, because democracy is what took you out of your sovereign capacity. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, share this video. End of transmission.
10:14. We will put an end to this madness.
It's me again, God. I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. Karma's gonna get to you, and then you'll have a chariot with only one less friend. Now I had distant folks that are looking to my eyes to understand the wisdom he's given and his wealth from the skies. So thanks for this meal that I'm about to receive, and thank you for my health and all the good memories. Thanks for the courage taken on another day, when I used to not believe, but now I know about grace. Stay away from the fire, cause the flames does burn. Go with your gut feeling, when it's wrong you learn. For every one step I take, the Lord takes 2. And do unto others if you want it done unto you. It's me again, God. I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. It's me again, God. I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. This a completion, the selfish Proto-Grecian, Amerindian, Phoenician. I'm the last of the Mohicans, the bastard of the land, the pen, melanin, accretion. And we just trying to get back to the fact that we was kings and queens of a land before the avalanche seized it. I live on Turtle Island with the rest of the diseased. Better than the medicine for 7 different treatments. Niggas try to ride away but end up getting seasick. The sleep can feel my words like Braille, and they're awakened with the penmanship of Hindu script written in them vacant monastery. Honorary payments to the prototype. Tomorrow's only a day away, but nothing happens overnight. The fuck's wrong with going left when you know it's right? Biting off more than I can chew, that's an overbite. Black on black crime is like watching 2 soldiers fight when all along they was on the same page. History. It's me again, God. I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. It's me again, God. I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand
to help me on the ladder to the land.